So, that said, we're now talking about the Rosary Garden. You might have heard about this project. You might have heard about this project that's been in the works for 5 years and that we have been looking forward to. A little history about this is that I did not begin this, I'm completing it. A little feedback. In that this was begun 5 years ago when founding parishioners both passed away, a husband and wife, within about a year of each other. Actually, I believe it was 9 to 10 months or so that they passed away. A little feedback here. You okay? All right. And they left a significant bequest for an outdoor rosary garden. But as the signs say, it was long delayed due to many factors, including the change in parish leadership here in the parish. And so Father David first took a stab at it himself, and then he realized this was going to be rather complicated. So then he looked at me and said this would be a good learning experience. So in October 2013, almost from the beginning, when Father David and I arrived here, he asked me to bring the project to completion. And so I worked with a team, PJ Such and Bert Karpinski and others, to work on this. We've come up with design concepts, and we have sought approval from the Pastoral Council, which is that group of parishioners who advises Father David on what's good for the parish, from the Finance Council, from our financial parishioner experts. Is my voice too loud? It's too loud for me. Our Finance Council and the Diocese of Orlando, including the Bishop John Noonan, all have seen it, all have approved of our work, and so we are moving forward. Next slide. We're not on the next slide. We were for a second. Now we are. Let's stay there. So the vision for the Rosary Garden. And so the idea here is basically we wanted a place that, using these 4 qualities of being accessible, affordable, beautiful, and scriptural. So those were our 4 guiding principles that we utilized. We wanted it to be a place for catechesis and evangelization, a prayer for healing, a place for prayer and healing, a place to be with God and Mary, and a place to meet for ministry. Particularly, we had in mind a faith formation class, being able to gather there, or perhaps on Christ Renews weekends, the opportunity to utilize the garden space, and even just moms meeting in the afternoon, waiting to pick up the kids from faith formation. All those things were in our mind for the vision. So let's go to the next slide. So the design and location. The basic design includes a 100-foot-long prayer path and a culminating prayer circle. And that circle will be 40 foot long, about 20 foot wide, and it's actually an oval. It's somewhat similar to, if you've seen the Rosary Garden at Mary Queen of the Universe Shrine, somewhat similar to that idea. And we'll get into the details in a few minutes. But first of all, one of our tasks was to fit it into the 2007 Master Site Plan and not impinge upon the future development of the parish, which includes things like a school and other buildings, and so we've done that. We've met our 4 qualifications of being accessible, affordable, beautiful, and scriptural. And the way that it's scriptural and reflective of the Rosary is that it combines the joyful and sorrowful mysteries of the Rosary into the landscaping and design concept. So the prayer path is landscaped more like the Garden of Gethsemane, with boulders, arid landscaping, olive trees, a couple of date palms to evoke that imagery. And then the prayer circle is lush, colorful, and fragrant in its landscaping to represent that joy. So the basic elements of life, joy and sorrow, that pilgrimage that we're on. And so that is how we are incorporating it. So let's move on to the next slide, which I believe is a picture. And so here we have our Rosary Garden coming in here. Some of you saw this at the ground blessing in September. We have our Parish Life Center here, the Epiphany Terrace here, a modular village here with the offices, and it's over here at the extension from this existing concrete sidewalk that our 100-foot-long prayer path begins, culminating in the prayer circle. Let's go to the next slide. And so here we are, a little closer view, and we see the existing concrete sidewalk going into our Rosary Garden. And this is the basic element here, the 100-foot-long prayer path, with the 40-foot-long, 20-foot-wide circle there, oval. And this is, again, an overall view. Here's Lucky, who will be framing the garden. Now, a little side note is that we originally wanted to have the Gethsemane area be in this part right here of our property, but there was just simply too much dirt work to be done, and I found out dirt's very expensive. You wouldn't think it is, but it is. So we weren't able to put the Gethsemane circle in here, although there is a possibility someday that we might, and that this garden could expand in other ways around the courtyard of our property. So for now, we put it around this way, which requires a lot less dirt work. So that was, again, something keeping in with our affordability factor. And so there we have it, I think. Are you guys ready to step inside of the garden? Yeah? Okay. Well, let's take that first step, and let's go in. Voila. You can applause. So as you'll see, here's our 100-foot-long prayer path beginning. It's brick pavers, and into the pavers is the Rosary. We have that in pavers as well, different colors, and it does have all 5 decades of a Rosary. So we have 53 Hail Mary stones, we have 6 Our Fathers, and of course the cross beginning it, and they even put the little links for the chain in between the beads there as well. So that's a very nice feature to remind us of the Rosary. We begin here, you see what the benches in the more sorrowful part will look like, a little bit like that. But let's go ahead and go to the next slide and pick our heads up and see a little bit better the garden. So here again, we have the cross here, the beginning of the path. We have a couple of date palms here welcoming you into the garden. And along the way, there will be some sculpture. Now, these bushes in the renderings, they don't look exactly, like what's going to be going in there. These are just renderings. We weren't able to get the olive trees into this shot, but those will be along the way with boulders as well. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. Let's go see what's going on over there with those ladies on the benches. Here they are. What are they doing? Are they praying or are they on their cell phone? I'm not sure. But either way, it looks like they're peacefully being there together as friends, having a nice conversation, even though they are androids. So, just kidding. But nonetheless, this is the beginning this is a rendering of what the area will be like. And you notice these are just the 2 benches we have now, because that's what we can afford. Now, we do hope in the future to put more benches along the way in growing the garden. But for now, these are the 2. And we'll talk about opportunities for more benches in the future. And we see our friend Lucky over here as well. Let's go ahead to the next slide as we continue to wind our way around the prayer path. So now we begin to make our way into the more joyful area, which has, you can see the reds and the yellows in this rendering. Those reds, those are blushing knockout roses. I'm learning these terms. We have encore azaleas, we have gardenias, all sorts of beautiful flowers as we come into this more lush area. Let's go ahead to the next slide to get a better angle on this. Voila. So there is a rendering of what the prayer circle area would look like. What do you think? Good. And so let me just point out a few things here to you. First of all, the elements of the pavers, the circle here, what's going on here is the basic idea of rays of light coming out forth from the statue here. And so we've got these rays coming forward, and there are 4 areas that are being highlighted here, and they are representing the 4 sets of mysteries for the Rosary. So this first one is joy, then light, sorrow, and glory, and then the word mysteries. So we know that the Rosary is the summary of Christ's life. It's a summary of the gospel. And so when we pray the Rosary, we're meditating on the whole life of Christ. And in particular, in our Rosary garden, we're letting that come forth from our encounter with the statue, and then as we meditate upon the different mysteries of the life of Christ and the Rosary, which is that scriptural prayer. See, we have light-colored benches here. This is the hopes that it won't be as hot on our bottom side. So hopefully that works. And you'll notice also the statue is blurred out. That's because we're going to have a little conversation about that in a couple minutes. There's also a retention wall back here. That's a 2-foot high retention wall, and that's to protect Lucky. Lucky will not be harmed by our construction. In fact, he will be able to continue to grow and provide shade. As you see, there is shade here provided by Lucky in the garden. And so Lucky will always remain accessible from 3 of the 4 sides. And so now, well, actually from all sides if you go into his tree well. And so now, let's go to the next slide. So here's having a seat in the garden. Isn't it nice? So we have a seat here on these nice little benches, which have the Christian fish symbol in the back. This is the same manufacturer as the black benches on our property, so it'll be that same quality. Will be durable and last over time. We see the words in the ground here on the floor. Now, just as a side note, for now, we did pull that out of the budget to spend more money on trees and flowers and that kind of thing. So in the immediate, as of the moment, we don't plan on putting the words in right away, but that's something that can come down the road. We see our friend Lucky here, that beautiful symbol of our parish, growing, presence of that tree as our natural grotto for our statue. And so, like I said, the statue is blurred out, and that's for a reason. It's because we know that it's an important decision, and we didn't just want to make that decision on our own, but knowing that we are a parish family, we wanted to try and have that conversation together and make a decision. And we know not everyone will always agree on everything, but we wanted to do our best to try to make it a family decision. So I will say, though, in the first place, we're going to use a temporary statue. Eventually, we'd like to have a permanent statue, but we're going to use a temporary one first. And the first one we're going to use is one we already have, and it's right over here in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel. And that is the statue, the smaller statue of the Holy Family. It's a stone resin statue. It's 38 inches tall, so it's about that high. We'll put it on a pedestal, and that will be our first statue in the garden. We do hope in time, though, to have a permanent statue. Wouldn't that be nice? And so we have talked about it, discerned it, and we have a concept, we have a plan, and we are ready to present some of that to you today. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And so for the statue of our Blessed Mother, the first points, these are a few of the points. We want something that's permanent, and it was discussed. Father David wanted, and the team agreed to have bronze would be the best. Bronze is pretty much indestructible. No weather, no branch falling on it is going to knock it down. No children climbing on it are going to break the Blessed Mother's arms off. That's a good thing. No vandals will be able to change it. So bronze is the preference here and what we're electing to go with. We want it to be beautiful and inspiring. We talked about having something custom made. It's a little bit different than just the regular Mary off the shelf, as I've said. Something that's approachable and fits in with that theme of the garden, which is to bring the scriptures alive, to bring the Rosary to life, and to help us to be entering into that place of evangelization, catechesis, prayer, and healing. And so, without further ado, I present to you our idea. Next slide. So the idea is to have an expectant Mary. In this image here that we have would be the basis of what we would be going from to use. And you see that she is expectant in this picture, but we would customize her a little bit, move her hands a little bit, put a smile on her face perhaps, and work in that direction. Reasons to do this would be that it sends that message of hope and anticipating the coming of Christ. During this Advent season, we're all about that, right? The waiting for the Messiah to come in the world. And how often in our lives are we waiting for the Lord to come? And so it indicates our faith as something of hope. And it represents that hope and healing that the Lord brings into the world, that Blessed Mother cooperated in. So this is rooted in Scripture. We know the Incarnation comes to us in the message. The beginning, it is the first mystery of the Rosary. And it indicates also the sacredness of life, reminding us of that great gift of life from conception till natural death in all its stages. And this is bringing Christ into the world. The statue would be meant to change us so that we too realize, just as Mary gave birth to Christ, so we as a parish and as Catholics are called to give birth to Christ in the world and to bring him to our society. So these would be some of the reasons there, but let's go to the next slide as well. We see this image being the base of what we'd use. In the next slide here, we have another image of an expectant Mary that perhaps might be a little bit closer to what's going to happen with ours. This is a wooden statue. This isn't the one we're putting in, but this is just an image to help stir our imaginations. And so with some of the possibilities that could be. And so we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. So discerning the vision. So we've talked about the garden, we've talked about having a permanent statue, and we've talked about our vision for that permanent statue. And like I said, this is an important decision for our parish family, and so we'd like to hear from all of you. So we have forms which are coming forward. In these blue forms, you'll have an opportunity to share with us your own thoughts, your own opinion. And you'll have the opportunity to write your name in and your phone number if you like. And the most important boxes are the first two on the top, which you'll have an opportunity to check off. The first box says, I/we would support, if done well, an expectant Mary statue for the Rosary Garden. The second box is I/we would prefer a different or another statue option for the Rosary Garden. Now, this isn't deciding about bronze. We have already said bronze is the preference. This is deciding about whether we feel, if done well, we would support an expectant Mary statue, or if we would like one that is completely different. And also, please indicate your preference there. And there was room on the back of the card for you to write your comments, if you'd like to give any, as to why you chose the way you chose, or what your overall opinions might be regarding the garden, or the statue, or anything I've presented today. And you're invited to take one individually or as a family, whichever you prefer. The third and fourth boxes give us the opportunity for future involvement in the Rosary Garden. Box 3, if you check, says that you are interested in participating in Precious Blooms. Precious Blooms will be our garden ministry that will upkeep the garden and other small landscaping projects on campus. So if you have an interest, you have a green thumb, or you'd like to develop one, you can go ahead and check that box. And please be sure to have your name and phone number on the card. The fourth box is for those who'd be interested in supporting the Rosary Garden with a financial donation to continue to grow the garden and to fulfill the overall vision of having all the benches and seating for everyone and all the trees and plants. You can check that box if you're interested in that. And again, I remind you that we welcome your feedback, your written feedback on the back of the card. If you'd like to say something or share something with us about how you feel about any or all of this. Father David and I will take all these cards, we'll read through them, we will pray, and we will discern what we have heard from you all and what would be best for our community. And we will try to make that decision to the best of our ability in the grace and power of the Holy Spirit. And we look forward to the construction of the Rosary Garden and to praying in it soon. Those who are wondering, we have 100% of the money for construction and 75% of the money for landscaping. And so we're on our way, it's coming. And so this isn't something else, but here it is on its way. But we look forward to the blessings to come. Finally, when you complete your card, there is a basket on the way out in the center aisle. You can drop your card in there and leave the pens as well. We need them for the other masses. And I thank you for your kind attention. We look forward to the Rosary Garden.